Canines exhibit extreme loyalty. This man shattered his neck after falling from a tree. It was stunning what his dog did next. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Today's tale transports us to Argentina's Bahia Blanca. Jesus Huache has always desired an animal since he adored them. He married a woman who shared his love of animals. A tiny dog that could keep them company, or a cat that was more independent while they were working, would be her ideal family pet. However, they were first unable to adopt a pet. They had no room for pets in their little flats when they first moved in together. After that, they were romantically involved. They ultimately made the decision to move in together. However, being 20-somethings, they had to find an affordable apartment, which meant that dogs were not yet permitted in their building. After that, they were married, and by the time they were in their late 20s, they had saved up enough money to make a down payment on their first house. At last, they would have a yard of their own. This implied that Jesus' long-held desire had now been realized. They could begin to examine the animals. They made the decision to move into the house, give themselves some time to adjust, and then, maybe a month or two later, add an animal to the family. A dog had escaped from her family's house in a different area of the city while all of this was going on with Jesus and his wife. She was mixed with a Labrador Retriever. She had some puppies not long after leaving her house. Out on the streets, she took care of them. The puppies learned to trust others because their mother was friendly with them. They would go off again, stealing food from onlookers or receiving belly massages. When the pups were mature enough to take care of themselves, they set out in different directions in search of food. Rescuers arrived and discovered the mother and the remaining puppies when one of the puppies was away. Unaware that another puppy was abandoned on its own, they carried them away. When the unfortunate dog arrived at the location where his family had once resided, they were vanished. After his mother's microchip was examined at the shelter, her family, who had never given up on her, was located. All of the puppies were soon placed in loving new homes. Fortunately, both their mother and her babies were kind. The second little dog was abandoned to survive on his own. Around that time, the young puppy in their new neighborhood was noticed by Jesus and his spouse. He was not the kind of pet they had intended to have. They were hoping for a cat or a smaller dog. This Labrador mix was getting on in size, and it probably would. However, he waved his tail and approached them when they called. When it was time for supper, he would patiently sit down and accept it without grasping. He would lay down on his back and expose his stomach to be scratched when they offered him some affection. While they were moving into their new house, they spent a few days getting to know him, and every time they left, he was waiting for them. Although Jesus was aware that they had intended to wait a time to have a dog, he nonetheless fell in love with the animal right away. Every time he left the puppy outside on the street, it crushed his heart, even though he wanted to show his wife respect. He was returning home from work one day, approximately a week after they had moved into the house. Although he had brought a sandwich to feed the dog as he passed, he was unable to locate it. The dog was nowhere to be found when he drove up and down the roads where he usually dwelt. Confused and disheartened, Jesus returned home. All he knew was that he would spend the entire night worrying about the dog. Once at home, he gave his wife a call. Recalling that she was in the backyard, she called back. To find her, he strolled through the house and out the back door. He saw his wife there, but there was a surprise with her. The dog was with her. His neck was adorned with a bow. She was aware of how much she and her husband had both grown to love the puppy. It was time for their dog, who was this one, to return home. She went to get a dog bed, some supplies for the dog, and, above all, some dog shampoo. They bathed the puppy that evening and gave him the name Tony. At last, he received the forever home he so well deserved. He had a filling and tasty dinner of dog food after his wash, and he fell asleep on his brand new dog bed, which was in their room. Tony soon found himself inseparable from Jesus after that. He loved both of his people, but he felt a particularly strong connection to the male. Tony was treated like a child by them, and Jesus would refer to him as his son. Tony was abandoned at birth and spent months surviving on the streets until he eventually became a beloved pet. He was starting to act playful and cocky. When Jesus tossed the ball, he enjoyed nothing more than to retrieve it. Every day, they took him for walks, and he could play with soft toys. Then, knowing that he was returning to his cozy house, he could stroll by the streets where he had formerly lived. They even bought him a little pool so he could cool down in the summertime. He truly had everything. His mother, who was human, only crossed boundaries when it came to her nightly bedtime routine. Jesus would go to bed a little before she did. She still needed to perform her bedtime ritual and wash her face. When she arrived in their room, the bed had already been occupied by someone else. When she arrived, Tony would be curled up next to Jesus, content as can be. Sometimes, she was certain he believed she could simply sleep on his dog bed. But he would immediately obey when she instructed him to go. They all loved him, and he was a wonderful family dog. That family was fantastic. Jesus had to adjust to being a homeowner and taking care of the house at the same time. Now they had to dedicate a portion of their weekends and spare time to housework and maintenance. They liked every minute of it, even though they had a garden to take care of and many more duties than they would have in an apartment. Jesus' wife didn't have the same time as him, so they were unable to travel during the few days he had to take off from work. He made the decision to accomplish some things they hadn't gotten around to doing with the time, rather than just lounging about and resting. He enjoyed spending the entire day with Tony, and the dog would always sleep by his side. He made the decision to tackle a significant undertaking, trimming a few of the trees in his yard. Everything proceeded smoothly until he reached one of the gardens in front of their home. He was accompanied by Tony. They trusted him to stay there since they had seen he wouldn't flee. After Jesus had trimmed a few branches, misfortune befell them. He began to fall as soon as he felt the branches give way. There was a thud when he hit the floor, and all around him became dark. He may have lain there for a long time because he was home alone when he fell unconscious. Fortunately, though, his neighbors noticed him collapsing and alerted the emergency services. What was stunning, though, was what Tony the dog did. Jesus discovered he was on the ground as he awoke. He also became aware of a weight resting on top of him. Tony was hugging him while lying on top of him. The heartbroken canine appeared to be afraid that he might lose his dad. The unfortunate dog never left Jesus' side. He simply kept rubbing his body up against him. When the paramedics got there, they thought Jesus could have fractured his neck, so they had to put him in a neck brace. But the dog stayed by his side as they examined and took care of him. Tony attempted to enter the ambulance after Jesus was carried in, but there was not enough room for him. Until his family could pick him up, the neighbors had to come and take him. Fortunately, Jesus' injuries were not too severe, and he returned to his devoted dog and wife without much delay. The dog knew that his favorite was doing well. I appreciate you seeing. Come back soon for many more amazing tales. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.